to put your rent up, or is it maybe? Let's talk about it. The tips and tricks to rental increases in the commercial and residential property market.
Good morning, Mr. Novak himself. How are you today?
Hi, Nath. What's happening?
Oh, besides the gloomy day that we've got, I think everything's doing pretty good. You know, keeping the energy flowing right through to the end of the week. Here we are. Weeks are flying. It's almost Christmas. Goodness me.
Was it 3 weeks? I think it's 3 weeks to go. 4 weeks to go.
4 weeks to go. It's unreal.
That is nuts.
But here we are, and we're going to kick on with today's question. Is there such a thing as a fair rental increase? And this is going in both ways, in a residential perspective and in a commercial perspective. Mark, where do we go from here? Let's talk.
What a tough topic.
Yeah.
What a tough topic. And there's so many things that are going through a landlord's mind that we've got to consider. And there's so many things that are going through a tenant's mind that we've got to consider. There's external factors that are happening in the marketplace that have to be considered. It's just like one big giant milkshake that you throw in all the ingredients and work and broker something that's fair for both parties. But boy, it's a touchy topic. It's a touchy one.
Definitely. But I think being a tough topic, let's kind of sum it up into like essentially 3 steps really that one can explore when it comes to all of this. Now I'm going to call out with step number 1, looking at being an owner, is market assessment. Now with market assessment, let's look into that category there. What are your thoughts?
I guess that's the good old one of the property next door just rented for this. I think I should get this, for my place. It's probably the most logical, and I guess in the event of a dispute, it's the one in a situation where you go to a tribunal. That's what they'll bring up, or that's what a bank valuer would bring up. Because sometimes commercial rents, they get bank valuers to do an assessment on the rent. They're just going off competition, comps. It's not the holy grail, but it's not far off that you just want to have a good look around that you're comparing apples to apples.
Absolutely. And you can imagine too that there's some owners out there that will hold a big chunk of sentimental value over the property, but being really knowledgeable and kind of getting a grasp on what's going on out there is you almost got to kind of find that healthy medium, I think, when it comes to that, because you don't want to get them overcome by, God, I've had this for so long, God, it's so good, then what? So
yeah. And look, and I think when you hear rental increase, you sometimes think greedy landlord, but sometimes it's quite the opposite. We've got land rent up, just no way. We've got landlords that give 1 week off on rent on their property. It's and I guess as a professional and an agent, sounds a bit mean, but you've got to sort of turn around and say, hang on a sec, your consideration of rental increases should be considered further. I know you've got a fantastic tenant, yada 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 yada, but we just need, all your other fixed costs have gone up, your market's gone up around you, you need to review that. So it is sometimes, I know we're talking about what's rented around you, but sometimes that's just not enough to put a rent up. Sometimes you've got to consider other things.
Absolutely. Look, that's the thing. The cost for a landlord, that it's gone up. The cost for a tenant, it's gone up. So that kind of ties in now to step number 2, I think, and it's essentially the consideration that you look in for the tenant that's there in place, and essentially looking at the quality of the tenants. Let's kind of dive into that one there. What are your thoughts?
Big one. And consideration, also, I guess fairness is going to weigh in probably as number 3, but to support consideration. But there's so many different factors of a great landlord, a great property, and a great tenant. I really do think in the milkshake of putting rents up or even down, there's got to be a lot of consideration over things. There's things like condition of the property. You may have found that as a landlord you have not maintained the property over 10 years or 15 years, and you give the tenant a go because they're spending a bit of money on the property. Good morning, Luke, you legend. Tenants are often paying under market rent, absolutely. And do the repairs, great landlord, absolutely. All that stuff's got to come into consideration when you're looking at that rental increase. Sometimes you are a landlord that is pounded and pounded by work to be done on the property, and you are spending a lot of money year in, year out for 5 years in a row, even sometimes unnecessarily, just to keep your tenant happy. That may be a consideration to look at what the market's done around you, to say, okay, we need to get that rent up. Maybe the opposite, Nath. It may be the opposite, where you have not heard anything from this tenant for 4 years, and you're considering that they have not missed a beat with anything, not rent arrears, they've just been the absolute dream tenant. And that you may go the other way with your rent under that consideration, to say, mate, I'll even go down a little bit.
That's it, especially if they've been there for quite a long time, and you can imagine all the fit out work that they've put into to make the property something from nothing to something, really. That's a big deal. That's a real big one there. And so that's then you look at, how's the trade been doing? How's the business been doing as a whole? And again, you want that dream tenant. If you've got someone that's been there and you've not heard a peep from them, and payments been coming in consistently, then happy days. You go the other end. You don't focus on increasing. You might as well just put it down a little bit. But then I think one of the other, essentially the third step to explore now is vacancy. And you can imagine that it's sometimes it's essentially daunting to wonder, how long would it take for a commercial property, for instance, to be rented again if it's on the market? What are your thoughts on that one, Mark?
What a big one with vacancy is, and this is going to sound really silly for people out there, but I urge you to think about it. A big thing with vacancy is perception, is fear, or confidence. We have owners that are overconfident on their property that it's going to rent like that. We have mostly owners that are underconfident that it's going to rent like that. And then there's the reality of how that property is going to rent. So be it commercial or be it residential, you've really got to listen to your agent about the lettability of the property, because you may find that you have a property that has trended to be vacant a lot between tenants. And I think we should consider that when you're doing your rental increase, that you should take the bird in the hand rather than chewing the tree. You may find that your property is shit hot, and you know what? If you're not going to pay the rent, someone else will. But vacancies definitely, I think, the reality of the dollars is very different to the perception in the head. And you've certainly got to manage both those things as a landlord. But I think, Nath, there's a bit of room to have a chat about tenants. We've covered landlords a fair bit out of these 3 points, but there's probably some really strong points, pros and cons for tenants.
Yeah, definitely. Now, seeing it either side, both resi and commercial, with tenants, sometimes that they've been there for X amount of time and they're almost querying from their landlord. So where are we going from here? Or I've kind of outgrown the property in a sense. Like, what do we do? What can we negotiate really here? And that's something essentially to explore a little bit as well, I think.
Yeah, look, another thing, COVID's been a big one, guys, out there, and COVID has been an explosive negotiation, necessary immediately, effective immediately, considering a lot of new factors in the marketplace. that's been in a tenant's world, it's been very threatening. And in a landlord's world, like there's been that's been the amount of workload that's put on real estate agents, tenants, and landlords, where something will just hum along and not be discussed, not all the time. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think COVID is definitely it's an interesting. It's almost like COVID's given people more options, that little bit of flexibility and the kind of the negotiation factor there, because it's like, well, they're kind of seeing everyone else more or less kind of get a deal over something. They want to feel like they've kind of been included in that pool as well, and so you've kind of got there the commercial property manager or the residential property manager, looking to find a healthy medium between that tenant and that landlord. But again, that I think's definitely been a tremendous impact towards a rental increase. Is there anything else? I think have we missed any little bits and pieces, you reckon, Mark?
When consideration was just such a big number two, because another consideration that we can talk to people about today is location. I've been talking to one of the leading commercial leasing agents in the CBD, and also a buddy of mine, and I was talking about CBD rents for whole floors, and at the moment they seem to be not as affected as everyone would think, but these leases are leases maturing over 3, 5, 7, or 10 years. So I think there's his punt was that's going to be a very, very changing environment for whole floor leases, and certainly where he was doing leases with people gobbling up, people aren't gobbling up floors. People are actually working out how to get rid of floors or halve their floors in major office buildings in the city, and micro spaces were doing much better than these big rentals for the city. So I think that's really interesting with rental increases, these sort of considerations to where you are, which probably comes back to what we said about vacancy.
Definitely. It's definitely something that I've seen. I mean, look, despite us working, within the Northern Beaches and seeing those trends, we've definitely got those little pockets of area in the city where, you've got these whole floors and you've got a landlord, wondering, why isn't it taking, why isn't it kicking off, why isn't it going? But it's like, well, look, if we can look to essentially break it down and utilize more space, it kind of then ties in with, well, then how can we increase it over the course of time? It can be a bit of a tricky topic, but I think as a whole, is there such a thing as a fair rental increase? I think there is, provided that essentially from an owner's perspective, you've done your homework and you've looked at the facts. And as a tenant, you've understood your business or you've understood your living means, and have you outgrown the space or not? Does the space still work for you? There's a ton of factors that come into play, I think.
Yeah, and look, I think as a tenant, and a bit of advice to tenants out there I reckon rentals are going to explode in most areas of Sydney, particularly lifestyle areas where they can be a sea change or a tree change area. I think that those rents are going to go crazy over the next year and 3 and 5. So I think locking into a long-term lease as a commercial tenant, as a residential tenant, would be a good idea to freeze your rent, to make sure your rental increases don't go up. I think we're giving that advice to everybody. We're giving that advice to landlords to not do long leases. We're giving advice to tenants to do long leases. We're just speaking from the heart that we think that rental market's going to be actually going up quite a lot. But we get paid by the landlord, make no mistake. So I guess, yes, we speak from the heart, but we take our direction from the owners. And if it doesn't matter who you are out there, if you'd ask us what our sentiment is on rent over the next months and years ahead, watch out, guys. It's going to be some big rental increases.
Absolutely. 2022, I can imagine. I think more so, the first couple of months into 2022 won't be so much of the case, but I think stretching on from that point on, after the 2-3 month period, I think definitely going to see some pretty dramatic increases.
So then, hence this topic today about fair rental increase. But thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Have a great day, mate. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone, have a great day. 14 degrees out there when I was in my car this morning, so it's unbelievable.
We're going to stay fired up. We're going to stay up for the day. See ya.
That's it. See ya. See everyone. Bye-bye.